community. Now I would like to call Suhani to speak about Community Certification Framework Program 2025. Suhani, over to you.
Yep. Hi everyone, I'm Suhani. I'm part of a UiPath community team joining from Bangalore. Before we start, I don't know how many of y'all know about this certification program, but anybody who's looking for certification, this is the right place. The community team has launched this community certification framework program, wherein we have 11 different tracks. You can scan in the QR code. I'll also put in the link in the chat, and you will land up on a page with 11 different certifications. Uh, the good fact here is that you get a chance to avail a certification voucher with some discount or even free. So when you basically click on one of the certification track or any certification track you all want to, you'll get to join the waitlist, and then you'll receive a seat allotment email, after which you get a learning plan and you get to sit for the assessment. Depending upon your scores on the assessment, you will be directed to the certification voucher. For example, if you get 50 to 75% in your assessment through your learning plan on the assessment track, you'll be given a certification voucher of 75%. And if you get a 75% plus score in your assessment, you will be given a free certification voucher and you get to avail a full certification for free. So this is a very exclusive and great opportunity for anybody looking for certifications, given how expensive certifications are these days. So I highly encourage all of you all to go and have a look on this link and register if possible. Yeah.
Wow, this is great, Suhani. So I think we have been hearing a lot from the previous sessions that they need some support in the community certification. They want to have a more certified, and which will help them to boost their career. So I think team and community, I would say that it's a great opportunity to start your free certification journey now with the different tracks that is available. Okay, now I would like to invite Harika to give the insights on the agenda and take the session forward related to the evolving RPA to the agents.
Thank you so much, Lovely. Let me share my screen quickly so I can take it forward from here. Can you confirm if my screen is visible?
Yeah, it is visible.
Okay, thank you. So thanks everybody for joining the session today. We are delighted to have all of you over here. Before we actually jump into the agenda, I wanted to give a quick brief about myself. So I've been working as hyperautomation consultant for a FAB bank in Dubai, and I have overall 10 years of experience in IT industry, and I've been nominated and selected as UiPath MVP for the year 24 and 25. Besides to my professional career, I also love content creation. I have a YouTube channel where I keep posting the content about the latest trends and technologies on UiPath, the latest updates. And also recently I started exploring something on AI, and you can find everything on my channel. So shortly I'll share the link of my YouTube channel as well as my LinkedIn profile. So you can connect with me and stay in touch for any new updates that you want to learn and, continuously learn along with me. So besides that, I've also provide the sessions, webinars, and I also give training. So I have given a lot of training for students, especially from AP state government and also for the government of India. So this is pretty much about me, a short and quick intro. So let's get into the agenda of the session. So as Lovely has mentioned that it is a series. So we have actually 3 sessions covering in this particular series. So as a part of the first day, we are going to see about the basics. So I'm going to talk about the generative AI, LLM and the roles of it, and where Mudhukrishna will be taking it forward by giving you more in-depth understanding about agentic automation and also about RPA versus APA. So when we talk about RPA versus APA, we don't just give you the derivation recommendations and leave it, but we also give you more understanding about how the workflows differ when it comes to RPA and APA, and which one to be chosen in which business use case, because of the FOMO and also the trend that is evolving towards agentic automation and agentic AI. We've been seeing scenarios also where people using the agents for even traditional RPA processes, so which does not yield returns over a period of time. So it's also equally important, and also you have to smartly make a decision in order to choose an agent or a traditional RPA process. So throughout this whole 3 days, 3 sessions, we will be providing you right from the basics. So if you're somebody who don't have any prior understanding about generative AI or LLMs, so this is the first day session which will give you a complete thorough understanding, because when we start working on agent, even though we try to do something at the business level from the front end, it's equally important to understand what goes behind, right? So on the first day we will be covering all of these things, and on the day 2, I mean the session 2, which is going to happen on Wednesday. So if you have not registered yet, the team will provide you the links for registration, so do register for session 2 and session 3 as well. So on the session 2 we will be providing you a very good understanding about the agent builder. So we not just talk about the theory, but we also help you to understand the implementation of agents right from the scratch, and also through autopilot. So in automation cloud we have both the features available, how we can build the agents from the scratch, and also through autopilot, so how you can actually choose it based on your need. So on the session 2 we will take you through this implementation and hands-on and the demos on agent builder, and later comes something on the session 3, so where we will be explaining you about Mastro. So basically when you actually develop an agent, it's equally important to understand how the agent is triggered, how the modeling has been done. So we talk about BPM and modeling, and we also help you understand how you can run the agent, how you can observe the instances of the agent, and what are all of these things, how you can actually create a BPMN model. All of these things we are going to explain on the third session, which is a little bit advanced one, right? So today, to give you more familiarity and foundational level clarity much clear, so we are starting with all the basics. So try to understand the basics clearly. We have tried to keep it very simple, and also try to explain it with much examples as possible. So try to understand these basics, so if the basics are clear, you will be able to easily catch up the session 2 and session 3, because when we talk about agentic automation as a third pointer, which is mentioned on the slide, so we talk about prompting, we talk about tools, context, and we also talk about escalations, which are pretty much you will be using on the session 2, right? So if your concepts are clear today on the day 1, you'll be easily able to correlate on the session 2, and you'll be able to build an agent by yourself. So try to correlate all of these concepts, so it will be easy for you going forward. So yes, talking about generative AI. So I'm sure everybody have the idea about RPA. So firstly, to reiterate on that part, we have to understand the limitations of RPA. So today with RPA, what can be achieved? So when we actually build any of the robotic process automation, we try to first check the feasibility. When we talk about the feasibility, we try to see to how extent the process is repetitive, the first thing, and how much stable the process is, because the robot cannot handle the situations where it is not trained to the bot, right? So we always try to look at the tasks which are rule based. So the robot will not have the capability or the capacity to think out of the box just like humans, right? So whenever we have the basic thumb rules when we decide, or when we evaluate the process fits for RPA. So the first and the foremost thing of it is stability. The process has to be stable. We do not recommend a process to go for a traditional RPA if it keeps on encountering multiple changes. Let's say for example there's an application, okay? So if the UI of the application is keep on changing, so that then if you run a robot on that particular process, it's going to fail because it is not going to find the element. Let's say for example you're trying to retrieve an email, the robot is trying to read an email. So you, instead of giving a supplier, you provide a vendor. as the email subject, right? So the robot will not able to make sense. We know that both the words have the same semantic meaning, but however the robot will not be able to make much sense of it, right? So the robot will not have that intelligence, or it will not be able to think like a human. So these are the limitations that a robotic process automation has. When it comes to scalability, even though we can scale the robotic process automations, there is still a limitation, right? So to address all these limitations, and also to give that intelligence and also the capacity to think, we come to the point where we give the AI to the RPA. So that is where we have come across different products of UiPath, where we utilize document understanding, AI center, and all of that. But however, we took it to the next level, which is agentic process automation, right? So how it is evolved is something which we are going to see soon. But before to that, I wanted to give you a clear cut understanding about AI and some of the terminologies, or something which I wanted to explain you through before we actually go to that part. So firstly, talking about AI, as I mentioned that the robot does not have the capacity to think, but however, through artificial intelligence, it is basically a computer system which can think like human and which can perform tasks like human. So when we talk about AI, did we ever think about like how this robot can perform, sorry, how this computer system can actually think like a human, how it has that capacity, right? So basically it learns from lots and lots of data that it has been trained on. So when we tell that the training has been done on the data, so here, if inside this picture, if you observe inside the artificial intelligence, we have two subsets, which is machine learning and deep learning. So when we talk about machine learning, so there are different types of learning, like supervised, unsupervised. I don't want to confuse you with all of that too much technical terms, but however, to give you a very high level and basic understanding of what machine learning is, so we are actually training a system by giving lots of data. So when we give the data, for example, if you give me a book, right, I read the book, I don't memorize the book as it is, but I try to make a understanding of it, like I try to understand the words. Similar to how I do it, the machine has a different way of doing it. Like it try to understand the patterns, it try to understand the relationship between the words, and it try to derive the probabilities. So that's how the machines will learn, that's how the knowledge will be gained by the machines through different types of algorithms, right? So that's in where the machine learning comes into picture. So there can be even more complex patterns, even more complex images, or difficult scenarios. In order to understand more about them, we go to something called deep learning. So deep learning uses a different methodology altogether. It uses actually convolutional neural networks. So just try to understand like how the artificial intelligence could able to make sense of the data that we are giving. It's through the algorithms that this machine learning and the deep learning has. In order to the data, when we give the data to that particular system, it uses certain algorithms and using that algorithms, it learns all the data, and it has the capacity to respond back, like, or to perform or think like a human, right? Let's say for example, when you are actually growing up, you have been learning through all your school, college, and all of that, right? So initially you don't have that much knowledge, but as in when you go to school and learn something, you try to improve, your experience has been grown. Similar to that, when the data has been led or given to that particular systems, it learns from that and it try to reciprocate and respond like a human. So that's the capacity artificial intelligence has. So I think I try to keep it as simple and understandable as possible. If at all you have any questions, please put it in the chat. Meanwhile, Krishna will be answering that, and until the end of the session, if you have any questions, I will try to take it up from my side. So yes, talking about AI, so we've been using AI since some time. It's not just that it has come in 1 year or 2 year back, right? We've been using it since some time without without our consciousness, right? So let's say for example, a small example you can see on the screen is when you actually write a email, right? It try to auto complete the sentence, or it try to help you to to finish the sentence basically, right? So let's say here there's an example. I'm disappointed because, and it try to give you some kind of relevant sentence after this, because the product is not delivered on time or the quality is not good, all of that, right? So how does it actually does it? Did you ever thought about it? So, as I again mentioned you earlier, it all depends on the patterns and the learning that it has taken. So, with the data that it has trained, so when I say that the data, it has not trained on one book or two book, it has trained on billions and trillions of data sets. In the data centers, they use like large set of GPUs, and these GPUs are basically it runs very fast compared to the CPUs, and they use supercomputers basically. So they run all of these and they train the particular system in order to learn from them. So when they actually learn from these particular patterns, it try to understand what would be the better word that actually fits in. So when we say word, it does not actually come as a word, but it actually try to make semantic sense out of it. So that means it try to derive the meaning. So let's say I would give a example like the cat is sitting on a, if I just leave it like that, the AI would fill it like with a mat, on a mat, right? So basically how it actually derives is with the data that it has trained. So it tried to derive that kind of information, and it tried to fit in what goes accurately into that particular sentence, and what it can actually auto correct or completely auto fill that particular sentence. So all these things or something which initially started with training, and later there comes a lot of different other technologies and different types of frameworks that can help in order to auto complete this. So similar to this, we've also come across something like which we face in our day to day life. For example, YouTube recommendations. So let's say for example you've watched a funny movie right? So next time in your YouTube feed, it tries to show you more of similar kind of channels or videos. If you try to watch something related to agents, so next time it try to recommend you such kind of things. Like for example, you're searching for any product, so similar to that recommendations. So all of these are algorithms behind it, and how it actually interlinked, and all of them work together in order to give you the certain and right set of recommendations. So that's how actually AI works, and it has various algorithms behind it. But just to help you understand how this actually works, everything depends on trainings and algorithms, right? So yeah, first of all, talking about generative AI. So we've spoke about AI and what are the subsets of AI, like machine learning and the deep learning, which will be using the training methods, and it has various other algorithms in order to have it derive. But however, talking about generative AI, this is a category of AI which helps in generating the content. When I say content, the content can be of any type. It can be an image, text, music, it can be code, it can be presentation, so it can be of any form. It can actually generate it. So as it also uses a similar analogy which I've just mentioned. So it actually generates the content based on the data that it has been trained on, based on the patterns that it has established, based on the relationships that it has with data, and the probability. All of this falls into picture based on which it can actually generate the content, right? So talking about the main objectives of generative AI. So I also wanted to explain you about LLMs, but before do that, let's firstly see what all the main objectives of them. So talking about them, firstly, as I've mentioned, it can generate the content. And then not just that, it can actually if there is any problem solving situation, right? So let's say there are any reasoning models. So when we talk about the models, there can be two different types of models, like large language models and the reasoning models. So it can actually help you to derive a solution. It can give you a step by step problem solving steps, and the tabular formats and all of that, or something which can be generated. So you might have observed in ChatGPT. So let's say for example you ask on any certain topic, it can generate the text. Not just that, it can summarize the text for you, right? So you kind of give a particular text and you ask to rephrase it in a certain tone, like formal tone or a funny tone. So it can actually summarize that, or it can rephrase the text for you. And it can actually do the sentiment analysis, right? It can let you know how the what is the tone of that particular sentence, whether it's positive, negative, or neutral, all of these things. And I'm sure you might have tested its creativity as well. It is for sure better, and it sounds like a human. sometimes, right? Like when you ask to generate any poem or any lyrics or any music, it is for sure able to do which looks like a human generated text. So all these things are different objectives of generative AI, which can actually generate the text which looks like as if human has generated that. So, and also there's one more thing I wanted to add over here is about the code. So when we talk about the models, I'll give you more examples about how which model to be used when it comes to coding and all of that. So yeah, so talking about large language models, so as I was mentioning about the training, so let's try to break this down into smaller pieces to understand how this large language model works. So basically, as I've mentioned about the model, so when we talk about the model, so this actually learns through a pattern or the relationship and all of that, right? So basically, when we talk about language model, here we are mostly concentrated on language, like how the words can be semantically understood by your model, right? And we call it large language model because, as I've mentioned, the data is so huge. It takes the data which is publicly available, like let's say books, articles, websites, codes, and all of this which are publicly available data. So it takes all of these and it uses certain parameters. So the parameters that we are using here are in hundreds of millions and billions. So that's why it is called large language model. And how does it actually work is through the data or through the training that we have provided. So let's say, for example, let's take a small example. I would, any one of you, whoever is going as a fresher to any of the organization, in the initial stages, you would be put in a training. So where you will be trained on domain specific information and technology specific information, and you would be trained on small projects, all of that, right? But after you've been moved into a project, you will for sure not be given a same project. You will be asked to work on a real time business problem, and with the knowledge that you have gained through your training, you will be explaining or you will be trying to solve the problem which the business is facing, right? So similar to that, with all the training that the model has received through all the data that's available, and with a lot of the parameters that it has been trained on over GPUs in the data centers. So with all this experience and the knowledge that it has gained, it tried to develop something or it tried to generate some content, right? Which cannot be actually, it's not something which it has been trained, but it can actually generate some new content as well. That's the power of LLMs. That's the power of generative AI, right? So I hope this concept is clear for all of you. So this is something which we've discussed, like this is how the LLMs work, and it can actually utilize this particular data in order to generate the new content. And talking about the various models that we have in market, so if you see today, there are numerous, here are some few famous models which everybody know, but apart from this also we have a lot of models which are available in the market. So if you see here, we have GPT 3.5 and 4. So now we have recently GPT 5 also released, so which is for sure a better version of GPT 4. So now in this, every model is specialized in certain thing. So let's say, for example, if you take GPT 4, so it has been developed by OpenAI, right? So this is very good at text generation and sentiment analysis, summarization, and all of that. But when you ask me for code generation, I would for sure say Claude is the best. So let's say, for example, this is out of my personal experience and my personal opinion. So let's say if you wanted to generate any code, if you want to write any code, but you're not so familiar with, you can ask Claude, and it will actually generate the code, and it will also give you some easy way to understand that particular code, and you can actually ask it to explain that code, why it has written certain way, right? So it will actually help you to understand and also generate the code. It will also help you to troubleshoot, right? With the help of all these models, the today's time has become so easy for anybody, even from non-technical background, can actually write code, and they can actually debug, troubleshoot, and understand as well. So here are few models that we have: GPT, and then from Google we have Gemini model, which is for sure the best reasoning model I have seen. So out of my experiences, whichever I've explored, this we have Gemini Flash, which is best reasoning model I have used. And from Meta AI, we have Llama, which is good at natural language understanding and content creation. And as I've told, we have Claude, which is very good at coding, and you can actually test it for free. So these are few models that we have. Again, as I told you, all these are various LLM models. You can use them because, as I've told you, again, these have been trained on lots of data that it will be used in for the training, and it kind of generates the new content for you, right? So yes. Next, talking about the agent. So yeah, Mudhu Krishna will be taking it forward from here. He'll be explaining about agents and agentic automation from here.
Am I audible? Hello?
Yes, yes.
Thank you. Thank you, Harika. I'll share my screen. Let me know if you can see my share.
Yeah, Mudhu Krishna, it's visible.
Okay. Okay. So before starting into the next level of evolution from RPA to agents, I'd like to introduce myself. Myself, Mudhu Krishna. I work as a tech lead at L&T Technology Services, and I have 7 years of automation experience. And I started my journey with Python, then later moved to UiPath, and I've become 3 times MVP. And then I'm also a certified community trainer. Then I've also been part of developer series that happened in 2024. And I'm also have few certifications from UiPath. Okay. So let's get into the topics. As Harika explained, it all started with RPA, robotic process automation. We added some AI. It got evoluted to intelligent automation. And then we added some more AI to it, where it can automatically generate by itself, called generative AI. And it got evaluated even more. And now we are in place where we came to agents. Like it is completely evaluated by itself. Like these are completely independent. For RPA, RPA is not completely independent. It can do all the acting part. It cannot think. It can only do the acting part. Whenever the thinking part is required, it will stop. It will wait for human. Human will do these tasks. Human, all the intelligent tasks will be carried out by human or some little AI, not generative AI, but not some little AI. And later it will continue. One more RPA will take over, and then that will continue. So from that, um, what if we have something where it can think by itself? That's where agents come into picture. So by the word agent, so why is it agent? Why is it called agent? Why not something else? So by name agent itself means to act. So acting on your behalf. So let's say let's speak about the general terms. If you take traveling agent, what will he do? So if you want to travel to some unknown place, he will create the entire itinerary for you. So he will give you where to go, what flights to take, where to live, where to stay. So all these things he will take, right? So he will act on your behalf because he's a traveling agent. In similar way, if you have an RPA or a bot or a robot which will act on your behalf, so these are called agents. That's nothing but an agent. So in simple words, agent is nothing but an AI powered entity that can follow your instructions. And how? So you give required tools to it. You give Google. Let's say you want to build a weather reporting agent. So you give a weather API or a weather related information tool to that, and then you just write a prompt to that telling you are a weather AI agent. You have to report to me for every half an hour about the current weather of particular city. So that's how it will work. So it needs tools. If required, it needs automations to make decisions based on human language, where the defined goals with the defined goals. So it interacts with its environment, and it will collect the information. So let's say you give an environment, and then you say like you have to log into this, and then you have to navigate to certain place. It will navigate. It can interact with live environments, and it can automate complex tasks. So what do I mean by complex tasks? We'll see it in the example stage. So we have a proper example where how the general RPA will look like, and then how the agentic process automation will help in that normal RPA, and then makes it even more end-to-end. So these are some of the key principles of an agent. Firstly, the planning. So you need to plan your agent first. You need to give a set of goals and plan of actions to achieve them. So firstly, you need to define what this agent needs to do. As I mentioned before, traveling agent, what he basically needs to do, he has to plan your itinerary. So that is his goal. So similarly, you need to give the set of goals to that agent. So that will come in the planning stage. And tools usage. So let's say if I want to build an agent to maybe let's take this same traveling agent. So I want to build a traveling agent for myself, not a human, I mean, physical one, but a software, but a robot one. So for it, I need to give all the travel related information to it. So firstly, the goals and plans to achieve them will be according to the user. You need to find a cheap and best way of traveling mode, either it be a train or flight, whatever it is, and then cheap, available, and then comfortable uh, hotel stay. So these will be my planning stage. These will be my goals to that agent. Next, tools usage. How will he check the cheapest flights? Some flight booking websites, right? So those will be our tools. So we need to give all related or required tools to the agents. So that will be tool usage. Next, context. Let's say you have a specific requirements for your travel, like you have some allergies, so like you cannot stay nearby sea. So these are your specific policies or your specific requirements, right? So in order to make agents understand your specific needs, there is something called context. So context is nothing but making the agent as per your needs. So in general, it can make it in general, it can assume every human being, and then it can create a general itinerary. But if you want to have an agent specific to your requirements, then you need to give your context to the agent so that it will ground that from that context. So that is the context. So that's what you have to give for context. And adaptability, to perceive and process information from their environment. So it's basically again related to the environment thing. And then reflection and memory. So based on your first travel, whatever experience you had, if you give that experience to the agent as a memory, next time when you ask agent to plan next trip, it will consider the previous points, like maybe the hotel it booked was not that good. So it will, if you give that also information also to that, it will store it as a memory, and then in the next trip it will adjust, and then it will plan even better. So with these, so these are the key principles. So whatever I mentioned, these are the key principles to develop a proper agent. So now we saw what are agents. So now what do you mean by agentic? So we have this hype word called agentic automation, right? So within that, what is agentic? So we have robotic, right? So robotic is nothing but where robots will be involved. So where robots will run, which are basically rule based. They cannot predict. They can only act based on the deterministic decisions. Like you give some decision, you say you go click here, download the Excel, upload it to some website. That's it. So it cannot, let's say there is a pop-up in between, it will fail. So these are robotic, right? So using robots, we create an automation called robotic process automation. Similarly, we have agents. So these are goal based. They can act independently. They can take dynamic decisions. All you need to give is set all these goals properly in English so that they'll act independently. So using these agents, you create an automation. It's called nothing but agentic process automation. So agentic automation is nothing but a combination of AI, automation, and orchestration. And these agents will have AI skills. And these AI skills will enable them communicate in natural language. So you ask something, it will reply in the same language to you. And so that's what it mean by agentic. So within that agentic, these are the key definitions that you may need to have a look on. So agentic automation, as I mentioned, this is a combination of AI, automation, and orchestration agents. So these are actual entities that act in agentic automation and agentic orchestration. These so we have orchestrator. If you're familiar with UiPath, you'll have orchestrator, something where you manage your robots, right? So how do you manage agents? That's called agentic orchestration. For this agentic orchestration, we have something called Maestro, which we'll see in the last session. So that's what we meant by agentic. So we started with robotic. Now after all of this AI and generative evolution, we move to agentic. So now what does it mean to move to agentic? So people often confuse with agentic means it is completely independent. It can do it by itself. All you need to do is a prompt. It is, but it's not completely true. You have to make it 100% agentic with certain level of degree. So let's say you have RPA 100%. Why is it 100%? You create an end-to-end automation. Whatever is independent, only those tasks, using those tasks, you'll create an RPA, a process automation. That's why it is 100%. But in agentic, it'll start with 80% humans and 20% agent, which means initially you create an agent, you train the agent, you say it'll work, whatever you mentioned to that, it'll work. You will correct it, it'll understand from that correction again, and then it'll again do its tasks. Again, it'll send wherever the human is required, it'll keep on ask. By asking, it'll learn, and at the end, it'll become 100% agent. It's not that on day one, it will not be 100% agent. On day one, it will rely on you. 80% it will rely on humans asking for the changes or asking for the next steps. Once you give the next steps properly, it will try to adapt those steps, and then it will try to improve in the next run. And then at the end, after few runs, after few human interventions, it will become an 100% agent. So to understand it even more in detail, so let's say this is the human body, right? Assume a human body. So until here, you don't have to think. So thinking part happens in the brain, which is in head, and rest of the parts will only can act. So if you want to open an Excel and then write some things in Excel, so you don't need to think. You just need to uh, click on Excel and then you just type something. So for those, you need just hands. So this part of a thing is called RPA. Let's assume this part of thing is robotic, where everything every step that you need to do, it doesn't need any thinking capacity to do. So all you need to do is you instruct something, you say like go click on there, it will click. And what will it use? It will use APIs and then UIs. So everything will be selectors, as you know, UI elements. You tell the robots to click using that particular selector or UI element, it will go and click. Everything, anything apart from that comes, it will break. So now the agentic comes into picture. To these hands, let's say if you give a brain with the thinking capacity, that's when agentic comes into picture. So they can act as they can take a role. They can be your traveling agent, as I mentioned before. They can be your invoice dispute agent. It can compare with some how human does. It can compare with some policies and then decide. So act as a it can act as an entity. It can act. It will not just do the actions. It can act, and it can understand. It can gain the knowledge from the documents, policies, as I mentioned. It can also retrieve some key KPIs. It can also measure the quality of of that process. You can give input context, and then you can provide output instructions also. So this is basically the simple way to understand like where agent comes into picture, and then how the robotic is, and then how the agentic is. Okay. So one more illustration to just understand the agentic and robotic differences. So left brain. So human brain will have two sides, right? Left and right brain. So left brain is only used to do structured, logical, efficiency-oriented, and system processing things. Basically, the only part where a lot of thinking required. So there is no creativity required. There is no decision making. So that's when left brain comes into picture, right? So left brain is nothing but robotic. You can assume left brain as robotic, and the right brain where the creative part, the initiative part, and the adaptability. So based on the environment, you may have to change and then think of something else. So that happens in human brain in the right side part, right? So that right side part is nothing but agentic. So to carry out some task, we need both left and right. So now let's understand the components of an agent. So maybe I'll show you what these components really look like in UiPath. But let's understand what are the basic components. Firstly, natural language prompt. So you need to, as I mentioned before, agents can act, right? How will it act? Based on your prompt, based on your instruction, right? So how will you give it an instruction? So that instruction is nothing but a natural language prompt. So give instruction in natural language. You give it, you'll tell what is its role. You'll give the goal, and then you'll give the constraints. And it is composed of input and output arguments, a system prompt, user prompt, and the examples. So I'll show you in the UiPath how this looks like. So this is the natural language prompt. So you give the roles and actions in natural language and the context. So context is nothing but short-term and long-term memory. So as I mentioned before, so if you just give a natural language prompt and then you say the agent to, okay, I'll be providing an invoice to you. You just extract details from that invoice and then put it in an Excel file. So this is a general prompt, right? So if I say this to an agent, it will work in general. It will not work for my company. So let's say in my organization, I have certain policies. So let's say in my organization, the invoices are based off Europe. So in India, um, dots are replaced. In Europe, it will be a comma, right? So you will separate decimals with dots. In Europe, it will be separated as commas. So in that specific cases, I need to tell my agent that these are Europe related invoices. So consider dots as commas. So this is my specific context. So my organization specific knowledge dump, right? So the agents has to understand my from my knowledge dump, and then accordingly it has to carry out the task. So to make it understand what it needs to do according to my knowledge. So that part is called nothing but context grounding. So we need to make agent to act accordingly to our task with our knowledge. So sorry, with our knowledge related tasks, right? So to make it act accordingly to our context, we have context grounding. So I'll show you the how you involve the context to your agent and tools. So after you give a task, and then it'll get the actions to do from context grounding. Maybe it needs to do the actual it needs to perform the actual task, right? So that to perform the actual tasks, it needs tools. So maybe let's say from invoice, it is able to extract everything. These details has to be updated in SAP. It cannot directly do that, right? It cannot log it. Maybe it cannot directly log in with credentials and then uh, go to certainty code and then update details. So for that, it still need a tool, right? So that's where our UiPath process automation comes into picture. That is one of the tool. So these can be activities, it can be automations, this can be micro automations, and this can be other agents, which is called multi-agent. And at the end, escalation. So now it was able to, from the language prompt, it is able to understand, from the context grounding, it is able to understand specific needs, and from tools, it is able to carry out. Even after all these, there is some decision. Let's say a decision is related to some monetary values. Let's say there is an invoice, a value like a price related information which it cannot decide by itself, right? It still needs human decision. So that's where the escalation comes into picture. So when even after all the context and then all the goals and concerns it have, it is still not able to carry out a certain task. It will escalate to human with certain applications. We have Action Center in UiPath, also Action Apps. So using these mediums, it will raise an item to user, to a human. Then human comes into picture, and then he will update that this is okay or this is not okay. Based on that decision, it will continue next, and it will not just continue. It will understand from that decision, and then in the next run, if it encountered the same situation, it will it will carry out the task by itself. It will not ask. It will not escalate again to the human once it learned. So these are the components. And in general, we'll all have one common issue called security related issue with AI. So one common question every time when you talk about generative AI or LLMs, one common question that rises is with respect to the security. Like since it is an LLM, however, uh, even if you use a GPT-4 or GPT-5, we all have this question that maybe it is getting trained by our data, our input data. So, and this is not this comes against the organizational policies, right? It can only answer your question, but it should not get trained by your data. So that's when the trust layer comes into picture. So from UiPath, there is something called AI trust layer with LLM. You can find this in automation ops. You can tweak these governance rules also according to your organization. So this AI trust layer is nothing but it will not allow the LLM to train on your data. It will provide the data, it will get the output, and that's it. So your data will be left in your organization itself. The further training will not happen on your data by, GPT will not train on your data. So that's what AI trust layer means. And you can control, as I mentioned before, you can control this AI trust layer policies and governance rules in automation ops. So these are the components of an agent. So before going to an example, let's quickly go through the dashboard elements of the agent. So these orchestrator, if you click on grid lines, you will find something called agents. So this one. So initially, this is how it looks. The landing page looks like this. So you can see the instances. You can see all the agents that you have created. You can, if an agent is running, you can see the live instance also, and then you can see the completed ones. This is the before we had a different version of UiPath, sorry, the agent builder. So all legacy agents, those are available in early adapter agents, and so guardrails and context surrounding indexes. These are nothing but also I'll explain in a while like how what is context surrounding looks like, and then what is an index actually. So interesting part will be templates. So UiPath is already providing some contact existing templates which you can play with. Let's say some of the common use cases that every organization might uh, do. So let's say product recommendation agent. Let's say you're working for Adobe, and then you want to recommend product based on user needs. So maybe if he wants to do some editing, then Photoshop will be a good product, right? So these product recommendation and multi-language claims agent. So these are some of the common things that every organization almost do. So you can make use of the existing ones. You can just click on view, and then you'll see the agent. So this comes as a solution package. You need to download, and then you can follow these steps that are available here. So you can download, and then it'll download. You have to go to it'll download as a solution, and then you have to upload it into in solution management, and then do these steps. Okay. Now let's go to. So how will you build an agent? So it is in Studio Web. You need to open Studio Web, and then here, if you click on Create New, it'll ask if you want to create agentic process or agent on RPA workflow or API workflow. You take agent, and this is how the agent builder from your path looks like. So instead stages, you can just write the prompt and then click on generate agent, and it can automatically generate an agent. Let's say um, to analyze, create an agent, given stock. Tell if I can buy or not. So if I click on generate agent, um, it just directly mentioned the steps, different steps that I need to do. Like I need to set up an input and output schemas. I need to give a system prompt. I need to give a user prompt. And so I need to do all this, and it already did few. So this is the system prompt, it automatically written. You can click on review, and that thing will automatically pop up in the system prompt. And then if you're okay with this, just click on accept. And it already created, like you are an AI stock analysis assistant. Your role is to analyze given stocks, whatever it is. That's the system prompt. And then for user prompt also, you can just click on review and quickly check if it is okay or not. If it is okay, then click on accept. and these are the input and output documents. Review. So it needs to take stock name as an input, right? So that's why it created a stock symbol. And then if I can give some additional info about that stock. Then output will be analysis, recommendation, and justification. So I'm okay with this input and output. I'm just clicking on accept suggestions. For tools, it needs to analyze, it needs to first fetch the real-time stock data, right? So for that, it needs to maybe go to a website and then get that information. So that's what this recommendation is about. And some financial related things to understand the fundamentals and technicals of that organization, right? So for that, it needs a website. It can be that, and then how's the history of that talk. So for that also it needs something, right? So it can be that, and click on this. This is it is not created for all those. It is suggesting me to create in UiPath Studio. So it is telling me to create a tool to fetch real-time stock data from a website, and then financial related information also. And it is telling me to, from that analyzed one, to do the historical data analysis, it's telling me to build a tool. And for context also, it is giving me some suggestions. So basically, that's how you generate an agent automatically using autopilot. Let's pause it. So as I mentioned before, so these are the components. So firstly, the system prompt, user prompt, and then tools, context, and escalations. System prompt is where you give the roles and responsibilities of that agent. User prompt, how an user interact with an agent. So that information you'll give in user prompt. And tools. So what all tools the agent will have to use during this execution. So those tools you will add. You just have to click on add, and then you can add, these are my automations. I can add those automations, and then I have few agents also. If I have agents, I can go to agents, and then I can add one more agent here. And then if I have to do a web search, or if I have some other let's say if I have to use, like I want my agent to ping in Teams, I can add Teams. So these are some agents. So let's say if I need to do web search, so this is web search related activity, and then I can add this. So for now I'm not adding any. So context, so how will you give the context? So for context, we have something called storage bucket in UiPath orchestrator. So quickly open it. So as I mentioned before, context is nothing but your knowledge dump, and then agent should not generalize um, it should not be a general one. It should be related to that specific knowledge dump, right? So that's it, right? So that's what context means. So you need to connect that storage bucket to your agent, right? So that the connection or that link is called an index. Okay. So let's say this is my storage bucket. So I just created a storage bucket which is having a JSON file. This can be anything. It can be a text file with some policies and related information. It can be an Excel file with supplier information. It can be anything. So you create a storage bucket, and then you create an index for it, and then you add that index via context here. So these are my indexes. So if I just add summary index, so this index is nothing but it will connect agent with my storage bucket. That's it. And escalation. So if I want my agent to escalate on certain things, so let's say there is a situation where it cannot go forward, maybe because of the price related information. Say that time it should not continue by itself. Instead, it should raise an action item to user, take his notes or take his command, and then accordingly work or do the next step, right? So that you can add an escalation, and then you can define your escalation here. So these are different elements. So these are input and output planes. This is the project explorer. So once you build your agent in regular RPA automation, what will we do? We have test manager, right, or test sets, right? We create test sets, and then with that test sets, we validate our robot, right? Similarly, we have something called evaluation sets. So evaluation sets are nothing but test sets for your agent. So you create your evolution set, and then once you built an agent, you can run upon this evolution set. So these inside these evaluation sets, we have some metrics, right? So we have LLM as judge, or you have your own like function, right? So those functions are called evaluators. So we have LLM as judge, trajectory. So you can define your own evaluator. So let's say in this you have to integrate a connection, or you need to integrate an app, or you need to integrate an asset. So those also will be available here in below. You can directly navigate through these elements, and then you can involve. So basically, this is not just an agent. So only this is an agent. Here you can create an RPA workflow. Here you can create an app. You can create an action item also. So this section is completely a solution. It's not just limited to an agent. Yeah. And so all these variables and arguments related things will be available in data manager. So this is nothing but Studio Web, right? So if you're already aware of Studio Web, then this will be pretty familiar. And this is issues panel, and then this is deployment configuration. If you have any configuration, and then so for each activity, how do you see properties? You click on properties, and then you can see for agent. If I click on agent, and then show properties. So these are my properties for agent. So I can choose LLM model here. So by default, it is selected select GPT-4. I can choose if I want to, if my task is related to some coding related. So Anthropic model will be a good one, or Claude, Anthropic Claude will be good. So I can select that. So that will be your um, um, that will be according to your need. And temperature and max tokens per response. So temperature is nothing but how creative it should be. So if you keep it creative, it will hallucinate. I mean, it'll pre-assume few things, and then it will give the output. So if you don't want to, if you don't want that to happen, if you don't want your agent to hallucinate, you need to keep it very precise. If it doesn't know, just don't think on itself. Just raise an escalation. Then you keep the temperature below like 0, and how many tokens you want the output into. So you can give 1,000, or maximum this is like 16,000. So these are the few settings for agent. This is the output panel. The output you will see here, and this is autopilot. So this is where I wrote my prompt, and then I generated, right? So I can, again, if I want to have more prompts and everything, yeah, I don't have to go to ChatGPT and then I can directly search here. Okay, I didn't add anything. Let's remove the context. Um, it will ask for input anyway. Say Apple. It doesn't have any information. It doesn't have any tools. It's just to show you an example of how an agent runs, and how the output will look like. So I didn't give any tool, right? So it is directly telling it doesn't have any data to analyze and happens. So let's say if I add a tool to this. So with that, it should go to web, and then it should search. That's it. So so I'm using the tool web search, right? So accordingly, I need to adjust my prompts. But let's see. Let's run the bot and then see what it does. Sorry, run the agent. Mm. I didn't update the tool, but even though it was able to get the tool, and then it made use of web search, and then you can see still running at return. Now ran successfully. Now let's see the output. So from the web, yeah, from the web, it was able to extract some information about Apple. You can see here. These are different information from web. And then from that, let's see the agent output. So this is the analysis. So it is telling it's a leading technology company, does iPhone, Mac, Apple Watch. This is its revenue. It went up, it went down, and then the recommendation it says to buy. And then why it is telling buy. So this is the justification of that buy. Yeah. So this is simply, so it hardly took me 20 seconds to build this agent, right? So if you want to further improve this, you can add a tool or an automation to get this information into an Excel file and then share that to an email or something. This can be your complete stock analyzing agent, right? Okay. So once I'm done with my agent, I'll be clicking on publish, and then that comes to the orchestrator. So I'll be deploying that. As you see here, this is a solution, right? This is not an agent alone. So if I click on publish, it will publish the solution, and then I have to deploy that solution. And after deployment, this is how it looks. So I've deployed few agents. So this is book summary agent. So this is an agent. So if I run that, I can see that in jobs. So basically, these are the basic elements of an agent. Sorry, or agentic builder. Let's get back to our presentation. So now we saw agent builder and then different elements that are available in agent builder, right? So now let's take an example, a general use case, a real time use case, and understand how it is currently done, and then how we can improve that with agentic automation, right? So this is one of the common use case. It will also be done by mostly supplier. If you have suppliers in your organization, mostly you'll be doing this. It's called vendor PO matching. So whenever you have, let's say your company is building manufacturing parts for a car. So if your company is automotive related, so it will create parts for your car, right? Or different brand cars. So let's say it's exhaust creating company. So each time when an exhaust is created, it'll generate a part number for it and then an invoice for it, right? So this invoice has to be matched with the purchase order, and then it needs to extract something and then do the two-way match. And if there is a dispute, discuss with the supplier or vendor, and then back and forth communication will happen. At the end, with that updates, it will create one invoice, or it will generate, or it will be the dispute will be validated, and then as a resolution will be given. And at the end, so this information at the end information needs to be uploaded into an ERP tool. Let it be an SAP, right? So yeah, as in when an invoice created, now if I want to build this use case with RPA, so as and when an invoice created, I'll be monitoring a folder, a SharePoint folder, and then when an invoice is had given, I'll create an event trigger of such. So based on the based on the event, the robot has to start, right? So I'll add an event trigger to check if the invoice is created. So as and when the invoice is created, the robot will review. How will it review? It will from using document understanding of UiPath, it will extract the information from the invoice, and then it will match that invoice against the purchase order PO. And currently from UiPath, we have a model called DocPath. So DocPath is nothing but an LLM model from UiPath. With it can do all document extraction. It is specialized on document extraction things. So you don't have to train the model. So in classic document understanding, what you need to do, you need to give hundreds of documents to the document understanding. You need to create a model by yourself, so that like next if the similar invoice comes up, then it will be able to extract the information from that, right? So DocPath is already a pre-trained LLM model specifically for documents from UiPath. So you don't have to train. You can directly as of now it can do proper extraction from invoices, from China invoices, from some documents it is well trained on. So it can automatically extract from that. So we use that, and then from here we'll have all the information about invoice and PO. Now within this comparison, there is a dispute happened. So when a dispute happened, it doesn't know what needs to be done next, right? So definitely human needs to involve in between. So for that, what we can do for now, we put that details in a SharePoint maybe, and then we give that SharePoint link to humans, and then we say validate this, and then do some investigation on that dispute. So human will investigate, and then that will take hours, and still human, right? We can make errors, so still error can happen. And after the investigation is done, after taking hours, he will suggest resolution, or they will discuss back with supplier via email. The back and forth communications happens, and then resolution comes up. Once the resolution is there, then they'll update maybe that Excel that we shared in the SharePoint. They'll update that, and at the end, they'll place that updated result in a SharePoint again. And then we create one more robot uh, called financial accounting to just take that report, Excel or whatever it is, and update that information into an ERP system, which is but nothing but, let's assume, an SAP, right? So this will be an end-to-end case as of now to do vendor PO matching, right? So in two places we need human, and which takes a lot of time, and humans will be occupied with um, this repetitive task. It's a repetitive task. Only the problem is it needs some thinking, right? So this is how we do it in current situation. I mean, if you are using RPA, this is how we do with specialized AI. Specialized AI is doc path is nothing but specialized AI. So what if agent? I mean, we have an agent, and then what if we have something that can think by itself and then continue? So that's when agents comes into picture. Similar way, we can until the invoice extraction, we can follow the same steps. As and when the human is required, we can add an agent in that place. So we saw that, right? We create an agent, we give a prompt to that, telling you are a invoice dispute investigation agent. You just mentioned that. And then you give policy documents, allowed exceptions, replacements, and etc. to that agent as a context. So it should not do the investigation by itself, right? It should do the investigation according to the company's policies. So that company's policies is nothing but context to that, right? So we give a certain context to that. Even then, it is not able to carry out with that context. Then it will raise an escalation, and this will not be a big task for human. All he needs to do, it might have done 80% or 90% of job. All he need to do is the 10% job. It will take hardly minutes, and that too, it can be a one-time task. If the same situation happens again, it may not raise an escalation itself in the next time, right? So for that, we can replace an agent. That will be the first agent, and then next the resolution agent. It can also communicate to the supplier via email. It can reply by itself. It can be more polite than human. It can if you train that agent, giving certain goals, like you need to ask this information, you need to cross check on that according to your system prompts, it will act very very better. So for that also, you can replace an agent, and at the end, if agent is taking more time, then you can involve with an escalation, you can involve human also in the loop, and then human can come into picture, and then provide the resolution. And at the end, once these two agents are done and escalation is done, it will automatically continue with the last tool. So if we call this as an end-to-end APA called Agentic Process Automation, so these are the tools. So robot is a tool. Robot one, the invoice review robot, this is a tool. Robot financial accounting, this will be a tool. These two are agents. Since we have two agents, this is like multi-agent scenario. And then this policy documents related thing is context grounding. And then you need to involve a communication also, right? So for that, you can use Teams, or you can use emails. Or you can integrate. You have integration services, right? With using that, you can integrate those tools. So that comes under tools. And as and when it is not able to move to next step, you need to involve human, right? So for that, you can use the escalation. So this part comes into the escalation. So this is how you automate end to end without having more of or 100% of human intervention required. So that's basically the difference between the robotic process automation and then the agentic process automation. So if you want to learn more about all these things that we are discussing, you can have UiPath Academy. You just have to go there, and then there is a specific training for UiPath Agent Builder, and then Maestro, and for system prompting, and for this prompt engineering itself, there is a course you can go to Academy, and then learn all these new techs from UiPath. And then if you're stuck somewhere, you don't know whom to reach out, you can just post in UiPath forum. Then we all will be available in UiPath forum. It's a huge community there, so you will get your solution in minutes. And if you want to have the live experience, so you can join community events like this. There are like other events also will happen in different chapters. So currently this is on Dubai chapter. We have other chapters also. You can just follow UiPath community to join more such events. So with that, we've come to an end for the first session.
Thank you, Mudhukrishna. Thank you,
So,
Mudhukrishna, and thank you, Harika, for giving insights. And I hope everybody has got now idea how to evolve from RPA to agentic. And we still have a lot of plans in order to have a more practical sessions where we will deep dive more into the step-by-step instructions and how to build agents as well. So I have already posted a link for next session, which is on 20th of August, same time. So please RSVP, and there you will have an instruction led session, same with the same speaker of building the your own agents and the maestro as well with the following session on the 24th. So feel free to RSVP if you haven't done it, and do connect with us on the LinkedIn itself. For any queries, you can reach out to us, or as Mudhu Krishna mentioned, UiPath community has a big forum. You can post your questions. You can connect to the multiple events as well for coming with the different chapters. And yeah, that's all from my end from the Dubai chapter. If there are any questions, we can take it up now. So in the chat, or you can unmute as well. So hope you like this session and it gives you some uh, kickstart journey to start with the agentic from the RPA, moving forward and evolving from the RPA, I would say. Okay, if there are no questions, then I think we can wrap up and see you in the next session with more on building your first AI agent with the UiPath prompt engineering and deploy the agents as well. So thank you so much for joining today. See you in the next session. Thank you so much, Mudhu Krishna and Harika, for giving insights and the time for the Dubai chapter.
thank
Thanks,
you.
lovely. Thank you, everyone, for joining. See you on second session. Bye.